Hello and welcome back. This is Michael Berger with Texas Real Estate Broker Insights. Um, Coming to you today, we're talking about sellers' closing cost. Last week we covered buyers' closing cost. This week we're going to cover sellers' closing cost. As I mentioned, it is not free to sell a property in Texas. There's a bucket of cost associated with the sale of a property. So let's dive right into the information. I have actually constructed a spreadsheet, and I'm going to slide over right here, and I'm going to put the spreadsheet in here. So at the top, you can see I have just put some general information that a seller is going to want to know. When we receive an offer, I construct a net sheet, send it to the seller so that they can review all the nickels and dimes because they do add up to quarters and dollars. The basic information is what address are we talking about? When is the anticipated close date? What type of financing are the buyers using in the offer that we have received? Is it a cash buyer? Is it FHA, conventional? What type of vehicle are they going to use to purchase the property? Then we go down to, I always put the first names of the buyers. I find it personalizes the buyers to the sellers if they can know what their first names are. Obviously, the first and last name is on the offer documents, which are also included. But I want to, if their name is Pam or Richard, I want to call them by their first name so that the sellers can form a level of familiarity. Then under that, we go to the sales price. And the sales price is also known as the offer price. What is the buyer offering on the property? Then I have used today 340, 967, kind of an odd number, but I looked into it. Zillow says that the July average sales price inside the state of Texas was 340, 967. So that's what I'm going to use. I want this to be as applicable to all sellers as possible. Then I go down and I have a second column of what are the expenses associated with the sale of the property. The first two are seller contributions, seller allowances. So if a buyer walks in and sees that there's a couple of, broken windows, say broken the seals on the windows, the buyer might ask up front when they submit the offer, we want $500 in repair allowance so that we can fix those broken sealed windows after closing, or we want it done prior to closing. Then we have seller contributions, which include a seller contributing to the buyer's closing costs. That video that we did last week talking about how much is it going to cost for a buyer to secure a property, that's exactly what the buyers are asking for the seller to contribute to offset some of those costs. And I will do a different video in the future about seller contribution and how that looks. Right now I have 0 and 0 because I don't right now expect to see a lot of buyers asking up front for repair allowance, and I don't expect a lot of buyers to be asking up front for seller contribution. That can come later during the negotiations, and I'll include that in the next video or down the road. Now we're going to get into the broker's fees. We have the buyer's agent commission, and we have the listing agent commission. Those are separate, and I'll talk about how the National Association of Realtors ruling and the change in rules back in August, how that modified how everything is done. I'll do that in a different time. Right now, the way we are currently practicing real estate in San Antonio, in a large portion of Texas, is that the sellers are still paying the listing agent, of course, as part of the listing agreement. And they are also contributing to the buyer's agent costs. So then we have the title insurance that is regulated by the Texas Insurance Commission. There's a formula for that. It does change. The different prices have different costs. I average it out to be about 0.75%, 0.75 of 1% of the sales price. So you can see that for 340, I am ballparking it to be about 2,557. I'm pretty close. My numbers are never perfect because that's the title company's job to ensure that everything does pan out and fit the boxes that they're supposed to be in. But my estimate is very close. Next, we have a survey. A lot of the times, if the seller has an existing survey, then that can be negotiated in the terms of the agreement that a existing survey can be used in lieu of the forced purchase of a new survey. If that survey is used and it's unacceptable, then a new one will have to be done, and who pays for that is generally negotiated as to whether the buyer pays for it or if the seller will pay for it. I always put it as a seller cost up front in the estimated net sheet, specifically because I want to overestimate the cost for any seller so that when the numbers do fall into place and everything comes to the closing table, I want the seller to be pleasantly surprised, not surprised that they're paying for a survey and they had no idea. Then we have the doc preparation fee. That's what the title company charges. Generally, it's about $75 to prepare the documents for closing. That includes working with the lender to balance the settlement statement and a couple of other documents. We also have a broker transaction fee. I know a lot of companies, including the company I'm with, which is Cooper Sotheby's International Realty. They have a $495 transaction fee that is charged by the broker. It is not part of the listing agreement. It is a separate charge. When we take the listing, the seller does sign acknowledgement that they are paying a broker transaction fee, and that is just to offset some of the marketing cost, some of the support staff cost, things like that. Then we have the tax certificates. That is a charge by Bexar County or the county in Texas that the property is closing in. Right now, I believe Bexar County is charging $16.41. Then we have the escrow fee. We talked about that with the buyer's contract or buyer's closing cost. They are also paying a $775. Like I said, it's between $500 and $800. The title company that we use preferably does charge $775 per side. And so that is what they charge for actually handling and closing the transaction. Next, we have the state of Texas. I mentioned that before in the buyer's closing cost. The state of Texas does charge $5 on each side, buyer side, seller side. So it's a $10 total. Buyer and seller simply split it. We have courier fees. Somebody has to be paid to go down and change the name of ownership with Bexar County or the county in which the property is situated. Title companies generally charge about $20. I'm not quite sure why that is still the case. 20 years ago, 25 years ago, they used to get the car, drive down and file things with the county. Everything's done electronically now, but they still charge $20 to do that. If the property is situated in a homeowners association, the seller will be paying for a new set of the documents, which include the bylaws, rules, regulations. They have to be a new set or a set within the last 90 days. And they're also paying for the resale certificate, which is a document that covers, are there any outstanding dues or balances from the specific property, as well as is there any lawsuits or anything against the property. That's a different video I can make down the road as to what are resale certificates and how do they affect sellers and the property in which they're situated. Recording fees. I talked about the courier fees going down to the county to change the name of ownership. This is what the county actually charges for recording the name of ownership and changes. And finally, lastly, we have the home warranty. A lot of times I encourage our sellers to pay for a home warranty, which is a 12-month policy that covers the property that they're selling to the buyer. Now, it's not bumper-to-bumper coverage. If a doorknob falls off or something like that, you're not calling the home warranty, but the home warranty company will send a technician out if the AC fails, if the oven quits working, things like that. The seller pays for the policy, and then the buyer pays for service costs, which are about $75 to $100 each. But if the insurance company decides that it is not a covered item, then at least they'll have a good diagnosis as to what the issue is. Down at the bottom, you can see I do have all of the cost added up. That comes out to the $25,966. Subtract that from line A, and you end up with the seller's estimated net proceeds. Now, there are two things that are not included in this estimate. One is the prorated property taxes. Some sellers have 100% disability because of VA. They're a veteran. Other sellers have over 65. There's just too many nuances to property taxes that I'm not going to go in and be able to correctly estimate what the prorated property taxes are. So I let the seller figure out what do they think their balance of property taxes will be for their time of ownership. And then the second thing it doesn't include is any existing notes or liens on the property. It could be a first mortgage, a second mortgage, a home equity line of credit. It could be a note that they have on the property because they got solar panels. It could be HVAC lien. Could be personal judgments, IRS, things like that. Whenever those things are tied to a property, the seller is guaranteeing through the listing agreement that they promise they will be honest and get everything paid off from the proceeds or even bring money to the table at closing, because the buyer has to receive a debt-free property aside from what they're placing on the property, as well as ensuring that there won't be any judgments or liens that the buyers will be inheriting. I'm looking at my notes. I think that that's good. I think that we've covered most of it. I'm going to remove this and step back into the middle. And I want you to do two things for me. One, I want you to subscribe right now. I want you to find this information helpful, and I hope it's beneficial. The second thing I want you to do is to comment in the comments below. I've gotten a couple of emails from real estate agents letting me know that they are real estate professionals and that they are in Dallas. There's one in Houston that has reached out to me, and I want to know how many of my audience is a real estate professional versus a John Q. Public. I am thinking about buying a house, selling a house, and I need more information specifically and pertaining to Texas. Like, subscribe, do all that stuff down below. I hope you have a great day.